Okay, so for today, it's a calculator way of doing the sequence problems from yesterday. But I want to start with one where we don't use the new way. You can still use the calculator. In fact, I encourage you to get one out. If you don't already have one out, get one out. We're going to use the same old way of putting the sequence into the calculator. Like, for instance, if it adds 5 each time, you put in your starting number, and then you say plus 5, and then you just keep hitting enter, 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 okay? It does work. But can you start with 7 and then go up by 4 each time, and then tell me what the 23rd term is after you write me the official u sub 1 equals this, u sub n equals blah, blah, blah. Write me the official way to write this in, what's this context? What's the name of this stuff? It's a sequence, yes, but what's this called? Recursive. I think you said that. Recursive sequence. Very good. How do you write this as a recursive sequence? It involves u sub n, etc. And it's u sub n. I often say that too fast and kids start thinking it's u sub. It's u sub n. All right, so I've started the formula. You finish it. I'm going to pause for a second. Once you're done, you should be able to tell me what the equation was and what the 23rd term of it was. I'm going to pause while you try it. Good. I have a kid answering the questions here. He said this is a 7, and then how do I finish? Is equal to, that's supposed to be a u of n minus 1. Good. And I would have accepted if you'd put it in parentheses like this, or if you'd have just used subscript. Okay, and now I got to do something else. What? Hint, it has to do with how it's changing each time. Plus 4. Who's got something he didn't have? Yes? N must be greater than 2. That is called a domain. You should have that there. It's saying that u sub 1 cannot be found using this formula. This formula cannot create the first term. It'll only work for the second term. Actually, it should be greater than or equal to. I think you said that, but I didn't write it right. Greater than or equal to 2. Because it will work for the second term. It'll start working on the second term. Because I can look at the second term and say, oh, take this and add 4. All right, anyway, if you forgot the domain, it's no big deal. Just put it in there. Okay, 23rd term. There's a way to do it in the calculator. If I go to clear this, I start with 7, and I hit enter. And then I go plus 4, and I hit enter. That's the second term. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now, I did that way on purpose to show you how annoying that is, because that's the thing that the new thing will not have to do. You'll be able to just jump right to whatever you want. Because what if I had said the 99th term? You know what I mean? There's a way to do it with the calculator. It's much slicker than this. How many of you did get 95 as your answer? Okay, good. Okay, then we're on to a different kind of problem, where instead of giving you the sequence, I give you how to make the sequence. I want you to note this. I'm starting with u sub 0. Can I do that? Yeah, I can start with any number I want. Usually it's u sub 1, but sometimes they start with u sub 0. Sometimes they start with u sub the year that you're in, like 2018. All right, u sub 0 equals 4. U sub n is equal to u sub n minus 1 times 1.2. My question is, what is the fifth term? And I also should include my domain since I made you have one. Notice I did it one bigger than my first term. This is my minimum n. My smallest n is 0. I set that right there because I could have picked anything to be my smallest starting term. Usually it's u sub 1, but I can pick any n min. That's called n min I want. Yes? Nope, because u stays the same, and u is true for every single term. They're all called u. But it's it's the subscript numbers that are important. These guys are what's important. Okay, if you had said n is greater than 0, then technically there is n's that are decimals. Like, for instance, there's u sub 1.6. So, no, you can't. Because I know, and you know, that if we're talking counting numbers, then n is bigger than 0 works because then it has to be 1. But what if there's decimals involved? Then it could be 0.5, for instance, and it doesn't work for that. It doesn't work until you hit the second term. So, nope, you couldn't say n greater than 0. You have to say, just pick one number bigger than this. It's not that hard. What's one number bigger than 1? Or 0, it's 1, and 1, and you say greater than or equal to. But again, don't spend that much time worrying about the domain. It's not going to come up that much. It doesn't even go in the calculator. You'll never type that into the calculator. Calculator knows the domains of these automatically, so don't stress about your domain that much. All right, take a moment. Put that in the calculator. Find the fifth term. I'll pause for a second while you do that. Okay. A couple other questions about this before I find the fifth term. Was it arithmetic or geometric? Geometric. Geometric of the kind you multiply. How did you know it was a multiply? That star right there. That was saying times by 1.2. All right. And that makes that 1.2 a special thing. What's it called? The what? Common ratio. Good. All right. Back in this problem, we did not have a common ratio. What did we have? A common difference. That's correct. The difference between each term was 4, so the common difference is 4. How do you get those? You take the second term and do something to the first term. Well, it depends. If it's an adding, subtracting kind, then you take 11 minus 7. If it's the multiply kind, you take 11 divided by 7. All right, so then, final answer. Save me some time. I'll type it in the calculator. The fifth term, 8.29. Raise your hand if yours would have rounded to 8.29. And if it's off a tiny bit, it's only probably because of rounding. All right, good. So now, here's how you actually use your calculator in sequence mode to officially do these. And the nice part is, you won't have to like hit arrow down or hit enter 5 times and count them and everything. It's a much more professional way to do it. Okay, so would you right now grab your graphing calculator and put it into the right mode. Go to mode, and my calculator is in SEQ mode. You know what that stands for? Sequence mode. Get yours out of funk mode, unless your name is James Brown, in which case you may keep in funk mode because he was the king of funk. Other than that, I want you to go into sequence mode. So it's like the 4th, 5th thing down, and it's way to the right, SEQ. You get that? Now you can tell you're in sequence mode when you hit the Y equals button, and it looks totally different than it has before. All right, now I'm going to talk you through each of these things. Now, it says n min equals 1. But it gives you the option to change it. All right, I want to talk through what n min is. I mentioned it already this hour. I circled it a bunch right here because that right there, that 0, that is the smallest n that I will ever use. You know how it's u sub n? N is 0. That's the smallest one I'll have. It'll always be this one because that's the smallest one you're going to have in your sequence. If I started my sequence like this, u sub 32 is equal to 11. U sub n equals u sub n minus 1 times 1.8. Then the smallest n I'd ever have in this is 32. They'll only go up from there. I know it annoys you to not start with 1, but you can start with anything you want. So what the calculator is asking is, what's your n min? In this problem, what would our n min be? 32. You get that that's rare, though, and usually what's the n min? 1, because usually you start with u sub 1. All right, so let's actually do this equation right here. So how we're going to put this in, the first thing is go to n min and make sure it says 1. If your calculator's just freshly been like cleared and has the factory settings on it, it'll have a 1 there. Raise your hand if yours had a 1 there in the first place. Okay, good. Then obviously on a problem where it started with 0 as this number here, then you would have changed it. All right, next. Do you get that the calculator's trying to say u sub n? It can't do subscripts, so it puts parentheses around it. So what comes after that in our formula? U sub n equals u sub n minus 1. Everybody type in u sub n minus 1. So that begs the question, where's the u? The u is above the 7 key. Okay. Move this stuff over a little bit so I have room to put my calculator up here. The u is right above the 7 key. If you put in a capital U, it will screw this all up. You need to match the u that they use. They use a lowercase u. You have to use a lowercase u. Sub is parentheses. The n is on the x key. X, t, theta, n. The calculator automatically knows, since you're in sequence mode, it should use an n. So it'll go like this, u sub n. And we're supposed to do minus 1, right? Minus is the minus key, not the negative key. That can screw it up too. And minus 1, parentheses. And now I got to do the rest of my formula. I see it on the board, do you? What comes after u sub n minus 1? Times, so a times sign. And I encourage you to put this in parentheses. You don't have to, but when we do the really complicated ones that are coming, you would have to. So you might as well get used to it. 1.8 in parentheses. It doesn't have to be in parentheses, but in the future, it'll be more complicated expression in there, so you'll need them later. All right, now I'm going down to, let's try to interpret what it said. It said u sub n min. But it already defined n min a minute ago. Nope, that's not the domain. You would think since it's the third line of the thing, it's the domain, but it's not. Read what it says. It says u sub n min. Look at what n min is. Right above that, it says n min is 1. So really, it's saying u sub 1. It wants to know what u sub 1 is. Doesn't it make sense? We have to tell it this somewhere. So I'm just trying to get you to get used to reading what it's saying. What it's saying is making sense. It's saying I want u sub n min, but n min is 1. So really it's asking what u sub 1 is. What is u sub 1? 11. So you type 11, hit enter, and now it's in there. Now next thing I want to make sure you get is that the next line is not part of this function anymore. Do you get it? It's a very subtle change. Do you get what they did to try to show you this is not that function anymore? It changed from what to what? U to V. So if you wanted to put in another sequence, you could. Why would you ever want to put in 2 sequences? Well, why would you ever want to put in 2 graphs? They give you 10 y sub 1, y sub 2, y sub 3, y sub 4. You could put in a million y's. Why couldn't you put in a couple sequences at the same time? See what I mean? So whereas the other one allows you to graph up to 10 things on your y equals screen, this allows us to do up to 3 sequences. You could do the U sequence, you could do the V, or you could do the W. But I don't need to do these. They'll also, because I have a color one here, the first one's going to be in blue. The second one, if I did make another one, would be in red, etc. Okay. So I'm done. I've entered all the info I need. Where am I going to see my results? If I just hit quit, go ahead and do that. It doesn't you can't even tell you've entered a sequence in here. But it knows that you have. So when you ask it a logical question, it can answer you. So let's ask it what the 5th term is. So how are we going to ask? If they had Siri, we'd say, Siri, what's the 5th term of the sequence? But she's pretty dumb, and she'd probably say, what are you talking about? I'm a little frustrated with Siri the other day. I was trying to, I had something so simple. It's like, God, I can't, sometimes it'll say, like my wife's name is Kristen. I'll say, call Kristen, and it'll say, There is no Kristen in your address book. I'm like, that's just, I've called her like 9,000 times on this phone. So anyway, they're going to get her to be smarter and smarter. I would bet that by the time you guys are graduated from college, those AI assistants are going to be scary smart. You're going to be like, the phone is across the room. You're going to be able to say, hey, Siri, reschedule my plane tickets for, for this Saturday. Move them to next week if you can get the price under $300. And seriously, if you give it permissions ahead of time to like spend money for you and stuff, you'll be able to do that kind of stuff. Like make changes on your airline tickets or schedule you a dinner give me reservations at Spago for Friday at 4 for 2 people, and it'll just do it. It's going to be scary how powerful it is. And you'll be in charge of Siri. Yes. Okay, table is a good call. Let's go to second table. It's right above graph. And the table, if it will ever show up on my screen here, yours is probably already up. Come on, there it is. Oh, you know why mine was taking so long? Because mine went to the 90th line of the table. Why did mine start at the 90th line and yours only started at the first line? Well, because my table settings were weird. Let me show you where they are. Right there. See where it says table set? Look on your calculator. I'd like you and me to move it because we want the 5th one, right? Let's have it start with, well, obviously, the 5th one would just come up naturally. How about we find the 25th term? So go to the table settings and have it start at the 25th term. So I'm going to the table settings now. Second window gives me the table set, and I want it to be the 25th. 25, enter. And in case you're curious, because some people are, the little triangle TBL thing, that means change the table by. That means every line on the table is going up by 1. Do you get it? You could make it count by tens on the table. Or if you wanted it to be more accurate, you could have it count by tenths, like go up by 0.1s. Because there are n's that are between 1 and 2. You can go to u sub n point, or n sub 1.8. You can do that. All right, anyway, I'm going to go back to my table now that I reset my table settings. And it should start on the 25th line of it. And there we go. Now, this is a really big number. Why is it so big? Well, when timesing by 1.8, that was pretty much timesing by 2, right? And do you know that when you double things, they get pretty big pretty fast? All right. So I did 25 doubles. Do you get it's trying to tell you the answer in scientific notation? So that means the answer is about 1.4, but you got to move the decimal 7 spots. Which way? To the right. If it had meant to the left, it would have said EE negative 7. Okay? If it was a really, really small answer. All right. So last way. Do second quit to get out of the table. Back to like the normal screen of the calculator. What if I want to just go directly to, and I don't want it to take forever, because when you do the table, it has to find all the values of the table before it displays. What if I just want to find the 13th term, the fastest way possible? What do you think? Yep. U is right above the 7 key. Sub 13th. End the parentheses. Hit enter. And boom, there it is. It's pretty fast that way. All right. To see if you really understood that, I'm going to want you to check your partner if they're able to enter. Find U sub 16. Everybody find U sub 16. Share it with each other. And the kids that don't know how to do it can ask. U sub 16, and I'm going to cheat and not even use the end parentheses. If you're really into saving time, you don't even have to have the end parentheses on it. All right. You get 74,000 about? Okay. So, moral of the story. When you're doing these on the next test, you'll be allowed to use the calculator. Do you get how, if I want to find the 400th term, this is way better than what I showed you yesterday? All right. Okay, so then I want to know if we do, this is going to be a little obscure way to do it, but I'm going to make you think this through. If we do the even numbers, but we start with 24, and then do even numbers after that, we're going to have 24 and then 26 and then 28, etc., right? Okay, what would be the 14th term in that sequence? Use your calculator to figure this out. Maybe you want to write it first. I don't know. It's up to you. We're starting with 24 even numbers. I hope you know how that is growing each time. It's growing by something each time. And then the last step is I want the 14th term. Remember, that's the first term. Now, if I had to do this on a test, the first thing I'd do is actually write the equation out. Like on an iPad, or if I was on a test, I guess I would write it on the side of my paper. U sub, and what would be a smart starting number? 1. If they don't tell you anything else, just start with U sub 1. And then U sub 1 is 24. And then I hope you could write the rest of this equation. I'm going to pause for a second while you piece this together and see if you get the same answer as your partner for U sub 14. Okay. So you add 2 to get to the next even number, right? All right. And if you're going to put that in the calculator, just going to do a quick check to make sure you did that right. You would start with n min is 1, as in U sub 1. Notice I don't have to retype all of this. It's pretty nice. When I get to here, I'm going to say plus 2. And how do I get rid of the rest of it? I hit DEL until they're all gone. There we go. I am adding 2. And I'm not starting with 11. I'm starting with 24. And then, which one do I want? The 14th term. Personally, I'd quit out, clear this, and go to U sub 14. Enter. Did you get 50? Raise your hand if you got 50. Awesome. You see how powerful this is? It's really good for sequences. Okay, so your homework for tonight is a lot like your homework for previous nights, except you got a much more powerful ability now with this way versus just the caveman way of typing in and hitting enter, enter, enter. I guess there weren't too many cavemen with TI-84s, but you know, this is at least more advanced than the old way. How do you get it out of this mode? You go to mode and get it out of sequence, but I personally wouldn't do that until you're done with the assignment. But if you want your calculator back to normal, you can always clear it completely, and that would be second plus 712. I wrote it on the board over there. Option B, just go to mode, get it out of sequence and into funk mode, along with James Brown and some of the other funky guys out there. Of course, he's dead, which means, yeah, anyway. Okay, so I don't know if you can still be funky and dead. I suppose his memory is, at least. All right, so your homework for tonight. When you get there, you will find it is a worksheet. I have it here, right here, and I'll show you what I recommend we do and not do. I have found that all the way up until we got to problems 11 and 12, I felt like it was necessary. You may skip 11 and 12. Now, also, the directions on this last one were a little bit scary for people, so let's talk it through real quick. It's not super hard if you understand what they're asking. For each of the following formulas, girls with me please, for each of the following formulas, write down the first 5 terms. That should be easy. You've done that a million times. What's this other thing? Then identify the first term of the sequence less than or equal to 1. Do you get that this is going to shrink because I'm using 4/5 as a multiplier? So it's going to go from 50, and then it's going to be 80% of that, which should be 40. And then it's going to go down, 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 down. Eventually, do you get it's going to get down to just like 2, and then it might go 40% of that, and then eventually it will get less than or equal to 1. And what they're asking is, which term was it? What they're trying to do here is make sure that you don't think that the only way you can do these is U sub 30. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're going to have to keep checking and checking and checking and checking until you finally find it. They're basically saying, I hope you know how to use the table, because you can just scroll down the table until you finally see the answer. See what I'm saying? So this is making sure that kids aren't just knowing this way, that they also know the table way of seeing the list. Okay? So you may skip problems 11 and 12, but other than that, those are all fairly easy, or at least important problems, and I didn't want to skip any others. All right, that's all I got for you for today. Any other last questions? Okay.